name's Al Mecca. We have my man DJ Terrible T, Tyrone Dunmore, West Side, Stamford, Connecticut. You know, in the building. I want to thank you for taking your time. How you doing today, sir?
It's my pleasure to be here, man. It's an honor.
No doubt, no doubt. I want to start it off like this. Tell me about your introduction into hip hop.
My introduction came about in the later 70s, about 78, 77, 78. There's a group out of Mount Vernon, New York called the Collin Brothers. Of course, Mount Vernon is the home of Denzel Washington, Heavy D, bless his soul, Jeff Red, and Westchester area in New York, which is right next door, as you know, from Stanford.
Right.
You have White Plains, you have Rye, you have this kind of the suburban area of what people know as New York. And there's a group called the Collin. They still are. They still actually are still doing things. But back then it was the Collin Brothers. And there was another gentleman by the name of Playboy Snapper. There was also a group called City Boy. Well, it was more like a band. It was City Boy, Sky's the Limit, because it was like bands and DJs kind of together. And then along came Africa Bambaataa, Red Alert, Jazzy J, DXT, the Cold Crush Brothers. So it all started probably 78, 79. And this is obviously before they even made records. So we that was the first introduction where we saw this thing called hip hop, as they call it today.
Okay. So what was your involvement at the time? Were you just kind of like a spectator, or how was that working out for you?
Well, yeah, I was a spectator, but prior to that, I was in bands. I've been playing bass since I was 9 years old.
Right.
I had a group, amateur group called New Creation, and we performed at the world famous Apollo Theater. Came in there with our own original song, and came in second, by the way. Didn't get booed. This is back in the days of Sandman. This is in the days before they televised Amateur Night at the world famous Apollo in Harlem. So I was already a bassist, a musician in a band, and DJ started getting a lot more work, so to speak, because as a band you're limited.
Right.
You can only play but so many songs because you worked on sets, and we all did cover songs. But our group was a little different. We did some of our own material. By the way, the song we went into the Apollo was "I Just Want to Love You, Girl," and it was a ballad that we wrote, and they were all home people from Stamford, Connecticut. So I'm just musician first, and then when I saw the art, the craft, the skill set of going from one turntable back to the next, and these rhythms, and I just gravitated toward it, and I said, I'm going to learn how to do that. So definitely a spectator at first. And my three DJs that I looked up that inspired me to want to get into hip hop were Africa Bambaataa. Back then it was the Mighty Zulu Nation, became the Universal Zulu Nation, which included Jazzy J, the original Jazzy J, and Red Alert. And then, of course, DXT, or DST, now it's known as DXT. And those were my first, I would say, three most influential DJs. Bam, because he had these beats, these break beats. Man, that like, what was that? Where, you know, and Jazzy J for the precision in his cutting. And DST just had so much finesse on turntables going back and forth. It was like watching somebody in ballet or something on 2 turntables. So those are my 3 most prominent, influential DJs that I saw personally. Of course, we know Grandmaster Flash was already out there as well, but I never saw Grandmaster Flash live. I took the stage with DST and Bambaataa and Red Alert and Jazzy J, so that's why I say with them, that's what it started with.
Okay, so were you just like part of the crew at that time, helping out with the speakers and
No, no,
records and
no.
all that?
No, 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 no. I quickly went from being a musician, to now forming a crew. And the crew I formed was Terrible T. It was TD and Company, because my real name is Tyrone Dunmore. So it was TD and Company, and then down the line, I picked up the name Terrible T actually in college, through one of my teammates on the basketball team, because I had went to school on a basketball athletic scholarship. I was a all-state second team, first team, all Fairfield County shooting guard, all New York, all Daily News, first team, city player of the year. So I had accolades in sports already, and being a two guard, as I tell people, going back and forth with the turntables was almost like simulating going back and forth, dribbling the ball, coming up down the court. And so it was a more easy progression for me to go from one to the next, if that makes any sense. With a basketball in my hand, and now I got turntables. I got, as you see behind me, in my studio. Those became the tools that set it off for me.
What was your first pair of tables that you had?
Oh man, I had to be some realistic turntables. The Candy Company, they don't even have them no more. Radio Shack, I believe that's what they were. But we didn't get to the real, you want to call it, industry standards till years later. So we did a lot of improvisation to what we could afford. And that means from putting quarters and nickels and taping them on top of the head shell or the stylus on the head of the needles, so it wouldn't jump, from getting wax paper and cutting it out and using it as, today they have what they call slip mats, but you had to really improvise, because you took off the rubber mat, you took that off, and you had to make it so it could slide. And so I believe, it was probably Radio Shack, something like that. I can't even remember the actual, you want to call it model, but it was something like that. Radio Shack, yeah.
Okay. So how did the group take off? Like, so you DJing, how's the group doing?
Well, the group was doing well, because and I can go back to my first hype man, or my first MC, gentleman by the name of Albert Edward, called him Ezek the Freak, and he was the first guy that grabbed the mic for me. Then with him, he had a friend named Sherman Carmichael, who, rest his sacred soul, he's since passed. His name was Toby C. We had another gentleman by the name of Freddie. I forget Freddie's last name, but Freddie was known as Rakashan. And we went through a series of different MCs that was getting on the mic and saying rhymes. So we went from TD and Company to, of course, then it became Terrible T in the T-Force. It became known as Terrible T at one point, and even the Crush Crew, because after we saw the amazing showmanship of the Cold Crush brothers, it made us go back to the drawing board. And we actually changed our name to the Crush Crew at one point. We even at one point called ourselves the Master Rappers. So we went through different various names and different various MCs, from Chino, bless his soul, Shamu, still here. He's out in California. Michael Jones. Mitchell Jones. Then I had a DJ by the name of, who's out in Boston area, DJ Juju. So we basically started this whole big musical family. And we even had a female group called Ladies Unique, which consisted of 2 female DJs, which was my sister, called Dee Dee Def, and at the time my girlfriend, Roberta Wilkes, and her name was Spicy B. And then we had MCs who were Frankie D, was my first cousin. It was Little Rock. She was, her name was Jackie Reed. She's still here. We also had a sister by the name of Sandra Richardson. She's since passed on, bless her soul. She was known as Tambia. And we were called Ladies Unique. And that group was formulated because there was New York City called the Mercedes Ladies. So we patterned ourselves to, what we was hearing. Again, never saw Mercedes Ladies, but they were on the card a lot of times with Grandmaster Flash and them. So we was, patterning ourselves after what we was either hearing or seeing coming out of New York. So that's why we got the female group. Just like George Clinton did Parlettes, if you recall. It wasn't just Parliament, it was Funkadelic, and it was the Parlettes. And so we had this like musical family, I would say.
Okay, so you had an early on entertainment company, pretty much.
Well, I guess we were like the early neighborhood celebrities, so to speak. I say that because we come from a very special time in hip hop when there was no records, and the stars were the people of your neighborhood. There was nothing on TV. There was no records, and but we gravitated toward this musical expression, and it galvanized the community. Then throughout our neighborhoods, there started having more crews. And I can never just say myself because, there's FSC, which is the Friendship Building. They had a group there. There was the Magnum Force. There's the Freedom Force. There was the Busy Boys. They had multiple groups. You had Super Sound. So there were a bunch of crews back then. Again, no one made records. You just, through your areas, you had crews that formulated, had DJs and rappers or MCs, and this is before it hit records.
Okay, where were you guys doing most of your shows at?
Say that again?
Where were you guys doing most of your shows? Like, where was it in?
The Mecca of entertainment in Stamford, the Yearwood Center on 95th Avenue is still there today. And historically, this is kind of sends chills up my spine when I even talk about it. Dr. Joyce Yearwood was the first African American pediatrician in Stanford, and my birth certificate is graced with her signature, not knowing this growing up, obviously. So, my official birth certificate is Dr. Joyce Yearwood. And that center she built for the community. And that was the Mecca. But we also had Addison, which was, they used to call it the Village Center for short. We had the South End Community Center. We would go into various centers, like not just Stanford. We would go up to Norwalk, to the George Washington Carver Center. We would go to Neon. We would go to even to schools like Eli Whitney School, various schools. We would go in and do parties. YMCA's. We did the roller skating rinks was big too, very big back then. We did a lot of parties in roller skate rinks.
Wow. So you guys was just out here, was just like every weekend, just out there getting your grind on.
Yeah, there was something pretty. That's what we did. I would say at least once every other week, if not every week, we had parties. And of course, this was a whole culture that's built around kids. We were all young. Nobody was old enough to go in the clubs. When I really got on the first on the scene, I was maybe older than some of my peers back then, but that was getting into hip hop. But I was only 19. So imagine the people under me. They were not old enough to go into say a discotheque back then,
right?
Because you still would have to have been 21 years old. So we had our own entertainment culture, and to this day I always bring this up. I said, we had more people at that year Center or Chester Addison Center or these road skating rinks, like on one given night, than all the clubs combined at Stanford at that time, because they had small little spots. There was no real big club till actually Tipton's came along, and that was years later.
Right.
I happened to be his first DJ that opened up for him when he was on Elm Street before he went into the hotels. But there was no big club. There was Done Right. There was the Zero Cons. There was the Blue Light. There was the Canopy, which later became known as the Renaissance. And they changed all different type of names. Now today is Sweetwater, but it's the same building. But even when you look at that place to this day, like, man, Yearwood Center any given night could have 500 to 700 people in there easy.
And everybody just coming out having a good time.
They came from all parts of town. Connecticut Avenue, Village, South End, West Side. That's, come on, it's right there on the West Side.
Right.
East Side. People came from, as they say, miles around to get over there. And those parties, by the way, were typically $2 with a flyer, $3 without, or $2 with a flyer, $2.50 without. It was very economical.
Yeah.
So you could save up your pennies and get to a several tea parties, let's say, back then. And you didn't have to be a certain age. You just had one thing we was really conscious of was the size of the person. So we asked, you could have been 10, 11 years old, 12 years old back in the hip hop parties in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you had that $2 with the flyer, or $2.50 without, or $3, you in.
So you
and
really
sodas and all that, huh?
So you really just actually cultivated the whole hip hop era in Stanford.
Yeah, I had to take that and just accept it. Yeah, pretty much. People tell me, and it took a while for me to even accept, you're a legend, and, as they put the word pioneers and all this other stuff. But yeah, my area, when I look back, I can honestly say there was no one in Connecticut or in Stanford that, like I said, inspired me to want to get into hip hop. They were artists or DJs or performers out of New York, and mainly, like I said, Mount Vernon, and I have to go down to the Bronx. We were right there, right there, and they came right up the line, and the rest is history. I mean, I think one of the and one of the guys to this day, he goes by the name of Bone. He's doing very well and DJing, and he's actually playing tonight. And I'm actually doing a show with him this Saturday. He said when LL came out in 1984, and there's a book with me on the flyer with LL. He said, you were more famous than LL back then. And it kind of, that's funny. I'm like, and yes, the book is called Yes, Yes, Y'all. And it's came out in 2002. And of course, I have my copy of it. And LL came out on Def Jam, I Need a Beat. That was his first hit single. First song put together, period, on Def Jam, and Jazzy J from Bambaataa and Nation, he was the main producer of some early songs by Def Jam, because Little known to most people was Jazzy J was the third wheel, along with Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin. It was Jazzy J.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You
Now,
go and look at them, you'll see. And it was 80. I birthed anything is when I say birth, flyers with me on doing shows with people and parties, even like a place out in Rock Vendors is called in Mount Vernon. And Red Alert is on this flyer. DST is on this flyer. Myself. This goes back to 79. There's another flyer that was put out 1980 with a battle of the DJs, or a battle New York, no, Connecticut meets New York. And then on this flyer it has it was called, Terrible T and the T-Force and the Force MCs versus Dr. Rock and the Force MCs. I don't even remember it. But it's on a flyer. So, and I tell people, don't expect me to remember all this stuff. I'm trying to remember as much as I can, but I'm talking to a guy that's now going on 63 years young, and I started when I was 19 years old. So that's a long time to try to remember all what you did and all where you've been. And there's certain key points because of usually tragedy, unfortunately, that I remember certain things. And one of those things is a very tragic incident that happened in Stamford, at Stamford High School. I did a show, I did the sound, and it was UTFO, the Real Roxanne, Lisa and the Cold Jam, and the Full Force. Yeah, Full Force with Bow-Legged Lou and Paul Annie and them. Huge. And that particular evening, we lost one of our brothers, bless his soul, Barry Hinton. He was fortunately stabbed in his chest for a gold chain. Lost his life.
Wow.
And so I remember shows like that because that life was lost. And though we didn't have a lot of violence then, we had fights in here and there, but never shootings. That, of course, was the first stabbing. And I don't know if you're familiar with Stamford in the sense of the West Side. To this day, there's still the Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was owned and operated by a gentleman by the name Mr. Gilbert Rozier, who was, I believe he was either the chairman or the president of the Urban League. I know he's involved with NAACP and all that. So he was a big sponsor of this show. And that's how we was able to pull it off at Stamford High School. And packed that show. So,
wow.
Those were the early days.
Yeah.
This is 79, 80, 84, and like one of the things, I know some of us are the last of the Mohegans. And when I say the last of the Mohegans, people who in our day, we rented the center or we got the center or whatever the venue was. We made our own flyers. We promoted our own shows. We had our own security. We did our own. Nobody hired us. We did our own thing. We charged what we was going to charge. We got a street team to put the flyers out, and we were the, so to speak, stars of the show. We were the headliner. We weren't playing for somebody. We did our own thing. And there's very few that can say that. And that's why I say we come from a very, you hear me always say we, because I could have never done this all by myself. No way. No way. There's too many people who helped me grow, learn, develop, and who was very supportive of me, and including my own mother, who used to work the door. So she insisted that she worked the door when she saw the kind of crowd we was getting and the kind of money was pulling in on one night. When she saw that money, and this is definitely nothing but the truth, we had a suitcase full of money. She would take that money. Of course, we had security, and my stepfather used to be at the door with him, big guy by the name of John Paul. He's since passed. My mother's been passed too as well. But they would take that money, go to the house, count it out with rubber bands, come back, and my mother would say, "Yeah, this is what you made tonight." It was just too much money to try to count on site.
Right.
Yes, with $2 and $3. So, and it was our money. And I have to throw this in as a cherry on top. Why it was important to me early, not just me, I always say we, because it helped bring the community together. And not only did it help bring the community together, it also helped funnel, or say help in the course of youth programs. Great point. I had a deal with, in particular, two community centers, Yearwood Center, which was the home base, and in Norfolk at the Carter Center. There's a gentleman who's executive producer, he's since passed to, Richard Fuller, bless his soldier soul. We would split the door. So I never, ever had to rent these centers. And that half of that money would go back into the youth program. So while we was partying and making money, we also was putting back money in our community. We wasn't taking all the money and going home with it. This is what a lot of people could never get in these places.
That's amazing.
That's one of my best kept secrets.
That's amazing. I think that's just so very important that we, even to this day, continue to pour back into the community,
Yeah.
And then plus you're establishing a rapport and you're bringing young kids together, showing that they can have a good time and enjoy themselves.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because that center costs a lot of money. When you talk about to rent it, you would have to have special police officers or at least police, insurance. I didn't have to worry about none of that.
Man, so you really earned them big.
Knew the money that we was bringing in, it wasn't going into Terrible T and the T-Boys or Terrible T's crew. It was going to one that was help put the thing together, but more importantly, it was help to finance some of these youth programs. And that was probably one, and I never talked about that back then.
Man,
it wasn't about bragging about what you did, how you did it. People back then, it was almost impossible to get Yearwood Center. Now, Terrible T could get it. And then remember, I'm a well-known person. I have a nice big family, the Dunmores and Stamford, and I'm a former, star athlete. So it wasn't like I was a stranger to Stamford or the West Side. I grew up on the West Side. So all the pieces came together.
So how do you feel about hip hop today? Like what's your thoughts or feelings on where hip hop is now?
Well, I don't call it hip hop. I know it's labeled that now, but it's just again, in the early days it wasn't called hip hop either. It wasn't called hip hop commercially till think about 92. Somebody can do the research. I believe it's 92. Prior to that, it was the Rap Attack. It was rap music, right? It wasn't hip hop. It became coined that later on. And so now people just take the title or take that label, and most people don't even know where the phrase came from. And it's two in particular artists, and unfortunately both of them are no longer here. Cowboy, Chief Cowboy, from Grandmaster Flash. He was the one that said the hibbity hip hop, and that's something that came out of, believe it or not, coming out of the military. And people can do research and see this for themselves. And of course, Love Bug Starsky, bless his soul. And it's amazing. As many times as I talk about these not these stories, but these historical accounts, how many people are no longer here. But anytime I mention their names, and if they're no longer here, I gotta say, bless their souls, or R.I.P. or sleep in peace, because there's so many people who are part of that and may never be mentioned much yet. You know what I mean? Like, and just because they're no longer here in the physical, that doesn't mean they still didn't make a huge contribution to this thing we call hip hop today. So to answer your question, I don't call it hip hop, because hip hop is founded on 4 basic principles, and that's bring the community together for 4 principles: peace, love, unity, and having fun. So if what you're talking about, if what you're promoting does not promote those 4 cornerstones, you're not doing hip hop. And then you have the 5 elements, which is the DJ first. Let's get that clear. Not the MC, not the rappers, not the loose spitting fire. No. They put the DJs in the rear. They put them in the back seat. But classic, authentic, groundbreaking hip hop started with the DJ playing the tunes, playing the grooves. There'll be no hip hop without the DJ. Okay? Second of all, then you had your hype man or your rappers or your MCs. Third of all, you had your break dancers, your B-boys, your B-girls. And by the way, if people don't know, breakdancing now is going to be in the 2024 World Olympics. Olympics. So something that people was putting on cardboard and spinning on their head, now it has not only the music that sees the world, but part of this culture, and B-boy, B-girls is part of it. And that's where the battle was done, battling each other, on the dance floor with these acrobatic moves. That actually comes out of a whole martial art form called capoeira, which comes out of Brazil through Africa through Brazil, and it came over by this way. That's the root of what we know as breakdancing. Those moves, all them spins and flips, and those are actual moves that come out of that art form. 4th, it would be graffiti. And I always say the graffiti was like our modern day hieroglyphics. People would tag, and I know it was defacing trains, but now it's turned into a whole art form, and it has been accepted. Of course, they were doing it illegal back then, but that's the 4th. And then the last and the most important of the 5 elements, the knowledge. Many of our earlier artists, whether they were single or groups, got taken for a ride. And not just hip-hop, R&B too. Signed raunchy contracts, made a lot of money for these companies, and did not get paid properly. And I'll just use one R&B group that we all should know that got jerked like that, New Edition, just when it comes to R&B. In the early days, because you're talking about kids, they want to be stars. They're trying to get out the hood, so to speak. They want to be famous. They want to be rich, so they threw a bunch of money at them, have them sign contracts. LL's another big example of what they did to our younger people with all this talent. Remember, after LL did his 13th album, he signed a 13-album deal with Def Jam. He never made an album again. You ever wonder to ask yourself why?
Wow.
That's why the knowledge of copyrights, publishing, mechanical rights, owning your masters, they got taken advantage of. So that's why knowledge is not the most important thing, definitely one of the most of the 5 elements, the knowledge. And that brings it all together. So you got 5 elements, 4 cornerstones: DJ, rapper, or MC, break dancer, B-boy, B-girl, right? Graffiti artist, knowledge. Peace, love, unity, having fun. after 9 lives, 5 and 4. The birth
Wow.
9.
Yeah. Yeah.
Original. I'm not talking about they added fashion and all that. Now you're talking about they got hip hop clothes. No, there was none of that before. They capitalized on what they call hip hop. They call radio stations this. So don't promote those things. It's truly not hip hop. It's what I think they call drill today, drill music,
Yeah.
trap music.
Good. Yeah.
There's no disrespect to the new artists. That's their expression. You talk about the foundation of any building got to be strong, and its original foundation was very strong. And when you think about the songs, the rhymes that we heard in them early years, and where this movement was going, when did it kind of trickle off?
That's
What
what
would
I'll
you say?
say. Probably like mid '90s, mid to late '90s.
Yeah, because it scared the structure to death. Remember, you had Brand Nubian, Leaders of the New School, X-Clan, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Treacherous 3. I'm talking about listen to the song. My throat is getting a little dry here. I got to give you some water. But
So
Public Enemy, KRS-One. Think about what they were saying.
yeah.
The lyrics that was being dropped. And as my brother Tony Crush from the Cold Crush says, they had to put a virus in it. But here comes, some people say, the mumble rappers. You know, you can't even tell what they're saying. Or they all sound the same.
Right. Like add water and stir.
Right. So again, that's just, I mean, it's no, of course they're making all this money now, but what they do with their money is more important than how much money they make. What they do with their money is their business. Don't get me wrong. But remember, as I said in the early days, at least I could say Terrible T in our group, we got to help put money back in the community. And there are artists that are doing stuff all over this world with their money, within the society, within the community, within hospitals and all kind of stuff. So I'm not saying they're not doing things like that, but all I'm saying is it's more important to recognize what they're doing for the whole, more so than what they're just doing for themselves.
Right, no doubt, no doubt. Now you had told me when we had a conversation the other day, you were like an ambassador for hip hop. Curtis Blow had brought you into something. Could you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, Curtis Blow had called me up. Matter of fact, interesting story because we go back in the days when DJ Run was his DJ before they even formed Run DMC. So we were doing parties and shows since the 70s, Christmas rapping, These Are the Breaks, early days. If anybody recalls, the Run DMC songs, a lot of the cadence in the songs, by the way, was patterned behind the Cold Crush brothers, who helped develop them because Russell Simmons came to Tony Tone and Kaz and on. They wanted to teach my brother what y'all do. This is facts. I ain't saying nothing that can't be verified. So in the early days, Run would say DJ Run. You hear that a lot in the early Run DMC songs.
Right.
Run was his DJ. He was called the disco godson of Curtis Blow. So my relationship with Curtis Blow goes back that far. So so him knowing that I'm still active, knowing what I'm doing in education, community still to this day. He reached out to me. He said, T, I'm doing this stuff. I think you'd be a good fit. So he put my name in, and I got selected to be the ambassador for the state of Connecticut for hip hop. It's called Hip Hop Alliance. And then he
hip-hop.
also nominated me or selected me or for this thing called hip hop, not hip hop, it's called humanitariancoalition.org.
Mm-hmm.
And heavyweights on this one. We talk about Dr. Bob Lee, KRS-One, Chuck D, DLB from Fearless 4, who happens to be a principal now at a school he used to go to. Now he is the principal. I mean, there's just education, health, Easy AD, Grandmaster Cavs. There's a whole, you could go look it up. You can see all these people that are serve as, I'm an advisory board member, honorary board member. And, you know, that goes right along with what I've been doing from day one, pretty much. Never leaving out the knowledge, because that 90% of this entertainment is business. 10% is entertainment.
Yeah. And it seems like nowadays people put more into their image than the actual art.
Say that again.
It seems like nowadays people put more into their image than the actual art.
Oh yeah.
Actually working on their rhyme skills, and being able to flip their verses, and just being a skilled lyricist.
Right. Hey, but hey, that's what it's shaped or it's formed. But and all we want is the best for our people, best for our artists perform. We don't want them to get taken advantage of, ripped off. We'd love for them to do the right thing with their lives, with themselves, with their careers. And hip hop doesn't promote hating on nobody, beefing with nobody. Because, we all in this together, try to make a life for ourselves, our families, and that's pretty much it, man. Why would you not want somebody to be successful in the same, say genre or the same, just it's pretty sad because today what they're calling pop, look at all and yeah, I think last time I heard like almost 30 something, as they would say today, rappers been murdered since, I don't know, in the last, I don't know how many years, but that's insane.
Yeah.
So is that promoting peace, love, unity, and having fun? No, it's really promoting the culture of, in recent times, look what they did to, what's his name, out of California, help me, Hustle, what's his name?
Nipsey Hussle.
Right. Look at all the great things he was doing. Because prior to that, the only ones I recall, Scott Rock, and that was breaking up a fight.
Yeah.
Boogie Down Production. That wasn't him. They wasn't promoting violence. After that, it was Biggie, of course, Tupac, that tragedy. But I'm glad you said to the mid-90s, early two. Look at what's happened since.
Yeah.
We weren't murdering each other. It wasn't beefing like that to the point where camps was killing each other, literally.
Right.
So I won't attach that to be hip hop. I know the society can call it, the radio station can call it. the industry can call it that, but I ain't calling it that.
I feel you. I feel you. What's the biggest advice that you have for the youth today?
Say that again?
I say, what's the biggest or best advice that you have for the youth today?
I don't I don't know if it's in this area, this room. I don't know if it's because
Can you hear me now?
I can't. You sound like it's like you said. What is the what?
What's the best advice that you have for the youth today?
Oh, what's the best advice? Okay, I heard you. Just get back to basics. Get back to the basic principles. Said my phone was overheating. I don't know. I'm sorry.
No,
Says
you
my
got.
phone is overheating. Maybe that's why. So I never.
It says your phone.
Yeah. Um. Let's see. Yeah. Just get back to basics. Get back to the four cornerstones. Think about your community. Don't just think about yourself. Because that's what Cool Herc started. Our platform where we can express ourselves, bring the people to, bring the community together on those four principles: peace, love, unity, and having fun. And of course, it then went worldwide. So if it's promoting violence, hate, animosity, shame, guilt, exploitation of our women, down on our women, downrighting anybody, like, we need music that's going to uplift us, because music is one of our only mediums that we can express ourselves freely, that we actually can really get paid for. Like, other than that, you got people that get paid for what, motivational speakers, but I mean, music is the universal language. So put out in the universe what you would like to return back to you, more so. Be more conscious of that. That's what I would try to promote to the younger generation. Make your money, yes, but invest your money. Put it in something that's going to be here way after you go. Don't think just about yourself.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, Terrible T, I want to thank you for your time, man. It's been greatly appreciated. I know you've been running all day to get back home and do this, and I just want to thank you. Thank you for your contributions to hip hop. You know, thank you for setting Stanford on fire so it was jumping when I got there. You know what I'm saying? I really appreciate you, my brother.
Well, it's been an amazing ride. Like I tell anybody, starting off at 19 years old and being here almost this November, be 63 years young. Who would have ever thought? Not me. 63 and still doing it, and at a high level. My last big event I did was Toast to the City, Toast to the Culture, excuse me, Brooklyn, New York, Albee Square Studios Mall, with Eric Mayer Adams, Ice-T, people like DJ Hollywood was there, and so many amazing, like, and called to do that. Basically to fill in for one of my most inspiring DJs, what I mentioned earlier, DJ Jazzy J,
Yeah.
who got hurt. And so just to be called on to do something like that I'm just grateful, man. I'm thankful. It's humbling. It's very humbling. It really is.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, man, go ahead and get your rest. Thank you once again for your time. And I got your number. I will call you. We just gonna chop it up, man. You good peoples.
All right, brother. And again, thanks for having me. I am working on my book. It will be out because Connecticut is part of that third unheard, that wheel, as they call it, the tri-state area. And we'll need to hear the full story, not bits and pieces.
No doubt.
And I'm just one of the persons from Connecticut. I a shout out to some of my brothers that are still doing it, Skinny Boys, White Flash, but two definitely that are still doing it to this day. So there's other people here still doing it. Julio, and it's just I can't. It's not just me. It's us. Hip hop has always been about us.
Yeah. No doubt.
We the people.
We the people. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.